let's turn to Ukraine, the situation there. As the winter gradually sets in, authorities are expecting Russia to strike again at the country's energy infrastructure in a bid to paralyse the country in events we saw similar last year. Several night attacks have already caused power cuts since mid-September. There have been a series of attacks in the past few days as well. Although there have been fewer compared to this time last year, there is growing concern in Kyiv that the world's attention is now directed towards the war in Gaza, and Ukraine has fallen off the map. It could cause serious problems, and not least with funding from Western allies over the winter. Well, let's cross to our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, and get more on this. Let's start off, Philip, the situation when it comes to the most recent Russian strikes.
Well, there is, as you're quite correctly saying, I think growing fear amongst the people of Ukraine and the Ukraine leadership that the war in Gaza has taken the war in Ukraine off the map. And this is at a very crucial time when Ukraine is fearing an increase in Russian attacks to try to knock out the energy supplies over the winter period. This is what happened last year. Between October last year and March this year, 60% of the power generation capacity was damaged by Russian attacks. 43% of high voltage capacity was also damaged. $10 billion was the bill in repair costs to get those energy supplies up and running again, and 12 million people were left with little or no access to energy during that period. The Ukrainian authorities say that despite all the efforts by Russia, they have managed to repair 90% of the energy supplies in the country. That's why they're worried that Russia is going to start again this year, with the principal aim of trying to undermine the morale of the Ukrainian people who will live in the cold and in the dark during the bleakest months of the winter, when the temperature can go down to at least -10, and also to make it increasingly difficult for the Ukrainian government to persuade the people that they should continue with their war effort. Now, there are also other problems that the Ukrainians are going to have to deal with over the next few months. You mentioned one, that was the Western support waning due to the worry about the outcome of next year's presidential election in the United States, and the fact that there's a stalemate in the fighting going on at the moment in Ukraine, despite the counteroffensive that was launched in June. The push forward by Ukrainian forces is still pretty slow, and the only group which is remaining steadfast in all of this are the Russians, which are building up their ability to attack Ukraine over the winter, and there's a lot of apprehension about what Russia is actually planning to do over the winter and in the upcoming period next spring.
Now, one thing you said, Philip, is depending on the persuasion of allies to still stay involved, and that depends on what's going on the battlefield. You talked about it slowing, but not quite yet, is that right? There's still some activity in key areas.
Well, there are three key areas in the war in Ukraine. We can put the map up here to have a look at those key areas. The first one is Advika. Now, just to let you know that Russia actually occupies about 17.5% of Ukrainian territory, but there is a constant push by Russian forces to try to take more Ukrainian territory. They've been pushed back quite a lot by Ukrainian forces, but not enough to make this a well thought out and positive counteroffensive by the Ukrainians since the month of June. First of all, Advika here. This is the main Russian area of the offensive right now. This is situated just to the south of Bakhmut. And this is the town that Russian forces would like to take control of. There are rumors that it has taken control of the town already. Ukraine has denied that. Ukraine says it's holding steadfast, but Russia is trying to encircle the town to be able to take it as part of its plan to take control of the Donbass region. Second point of interest is Kherson, where there is a push forward by Ukrainian forces to try to cut off Russian supplies this side to divide the Russian offensive and make it easier for the Ukrainians to take control of this part of the country, and therefore cut off supplies to Crimea further south, which is under, of course, full Russian control. And the third area of interest is here, which is the Dnipro River, where the Ukrainians say they have managed to push forward over the last few weeks and to cross the river to the eastern side, which is under Russian control. Earlier this morning, there was a statement by Russian forces saying that they had pushed back another attempt by the Ukrainians to move further south over the Dnipro River. That hasn't been confirmed yet by the Ukrainian forces, but the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, says that his forces are advancing. The Russians are being pushed back. There is ferocious fighting taking place there, but they have advanced Ukrainian forces by about 15 kilometers or so. So that is the situation really as far as the offensive is concerned so far on the front line.
And there's potentially a very different future as well, Philip, isn't there? The fact that you have Volodymyr Zelensky wondering whether its biggest backer, well, will it still be Joe Biden or will it be the current favourite in the polls, Donald Trump?
That is a major concern for the Ukrainian authorities. I think the major concern, because the United States is the biggest contributor of aid, military aid and financial aid to the Ukrainians, $76.8 billion since the start of the Ukraine war, from February last year to July the 31st this year. There has been another pledge by the US Defense Department of $100 million in aid to Ukraine, but there are worries that if Donald Trump is re-elected to the presidency next year, he will try to sign a deal pretty quickly with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, to put an end to the war, to end US contributions to Ukraine. Now, Donald Trump has said he could end the war in about 24 hours if he is elected. The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has said that is untrue. He's invited Donald Trump to come to Ukraine, saying, I need 24 minutes to explain to Donald Trump why he would not be able to end the war in Ukraine. That's not all. There's growing fatigue in Europe as well. That's been underlined by the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, saying that there is a lot of fatigue from all sides. But there is good news. The US has been present this week. The Defense Chief, Lloyd Austin, went to Ukraine, and so did the brand new Foreign Minister of the UK, the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron. He was in Ukraine last week to offer British support, the second biggest contributor to Ukraine's aid, saying that that support will continue.
Cameron, who's just been made Lord Cameron of Chipping Norton. Philip Turle, thank you, our International Affairs Editor.